Hey everybody, I hope you're all fine. So you must be really excited. You have your product, you know that you want to put it on the market. Well, first thing first is to create a legal structure, right? So in today's video, we're going to talk about legal structure, LLC versus Corp, insurance, and also regulatory affairs that is associated to cosmetics. You probably know that if you want to put your product on website like Shopify, you're actually going to need to create the legal structure because they're going to ask you a couple of questions like your EIN number, things like that. So you want to make sure that you have a legal structure. Now, what type of legal structure should you get? You must be familiar with what is called LLC. It's pretty famous nowadays because it's the perfect combination between corporation and partnership. The thing with the LLC is that the losses and the profits of the company can actually be added to the owner personal tax returns. What does that mean? So for instance, if you start your company, you probably put like something like 20K down to start, and probably the first couple of months you're probably not going to make any profit. Well, you can, in case, let's say that year you didn't make any profit, the good thing is that you're going to report that expense with your personal. So let's say, for instance, if you're still working for somebody else and you're filing your personal tax return, you're going to report the company tax return through your personal so that you'll be taxed less, if that's clear. Well, disclaimer, I'm not a CPA, so I'm just explaining what I understood, and all the thing I'm presenting here today, I actually got all those information from my company works. I actually use that company to create my legal structure. So if there is a CPA here watching this video, please feel free to comment if I'm saying any mistakes so that we can learn and grow together. Now, the other type of company that you can create is the C Corp. This is pretty old, it's pretty famous. The good thing with the Corp is that there are a lot of things, expenses that you can actually deduct from your taxes, like healthcare program, healthcare expenses, also other type of programs. Okay, the major difference as well is that you can buy stock via the company. You can easily sue people. The company can easily sue people. You can also be sued, and it's going to be totally separate. Well, LLC actually requires less paperwork. Now the good thing is that the LLC now can also report the taxes as an S Corp. Decide that you don't want the company tax to be associated with your personal tax report. So the company itself is going to report separately its taxes. And I highly recommend you to talk to a CPA because they know better what's the best for you. Depending on the amount of money that your company is already making, you might want to sign for a corporation or, an LLC, then sign as an LLC/S Corp or C Corp. All that depends on the type of money that your company is going to make. Second thing that I want to talk to you today is insurance. You might think that insurance, well, it's not really necessary, but I highly recommend you to get an insurance because, especially if you're in the States, in the States, people sue people so easily. I'm from Cameroon. We don't have the same culture, but I know that here, everybody has insurance. So you really want to make sure that you have insurance. You can have like a basic insurance for cosmetics, which is going to cover, like, for instance, you're just starting your product, and I hope that before putting it on the market, you did the correct test, right? But let's say, we never know, you release a batch that for some reason, after a few weeks, you're going to see contamination with bacterial, fungi, and things like that. Your insurance can actually cover that. Then your insurance can also cover your cyber breach, data protection, things like that. And you can even take like an extra coverage if you want, for instance, to cover the costs. Like, let's say that you have raw material in your laboratory where you're manufacturing, and you want to make sure that if something happens to that laboratory, like fire or anything, and then everything gets damaged, that you're still covered. You can cover that as well. Even if you don't have money, the only thing that you should invest in is insurance. Now, regulatory affairs. I'm sure a lot of you guys must be wondering, what does it take to put a cosmetic product on the market? Like in terms of legislation, the legislation is different in Europe than in the States. In Europe, it's more strict. So you know that here in the States, you have the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, which is responsible to allow all drugs to be put on the market. So before a drug is put on the market, it has to be registered through the FDA, and FDA has to accept it, right, to allow it to be put on the market. In Europe, you have the same thing for drugs and something separate for cosmetics, actually. Before all cosmetics products being put on the market in Europe, actually, you have to register your product. In the States, it's not the same. So in the States, there is no governmental requirements where you're going to go online and file a report for your product. So the state just give you guidelines that you have to follow. You have to make sure that your product is safe before putting that on the market, but you actually don't receive a kind of authorization. But in Europe, it's different. You go and you file something which is called dossier du produit in French. I'm not sure what is the name in English. And each country has that. And then you're going to list all the ingredients that you're using in your product, because they want to check if you're using products that are allowed, should be used in a certain way, restricted, forbidden, and all that. So they're really, really strict with that. And then they're also going to check what kind of packaging are you using. And they want to make sure that your ingredients are not interacting with your packaging. And then they're also going to ask you to do certain tests in a laboratory, in a certified laboratory, to check that, for instance, your product is safe. And safety, there are different levels of safety. The chemistry. So for instance, if you're manufacturing an emulsion, which you do when you're manufacturing a cream or leave-in conditioner and things like that, anything that use water and oil, and combine those two, an emulsion. If you're manufacturing such products, well, you have to make sure that the product remains stable. So those two phases, after a certain time, are not going to separate. They're still going to be one phase. So this will be the chemistry. Then they also want to make sure that there is not going to have any bacterial or microorganism growth in the product, so you have to check that as well. Another thing will be things like the color, for instance. They also can check if you have like a pink product, is it remain pink throughout the days or does it change? Here in the States, you have guidelines, you should do it, but nobody's here to say, okay, go and register online on the government portal and put all those information. You don't have to do that here, but in Europe, you have to do it. And it takes time and it requires money. So the easiest and quick way in Europe to be able to put a cosmetic product on the market is either to use something that doesn't contain water, because you're going to have less paper. If you're selling like an oil, only an oil with no water in it, well, it was going to be a little bit easier for you. Another thing is that you can say that you want to use like single batch, like uni-dose. I hope this is what you say in English, like something that you're just going to use just for once. This as well is a way to kind of circumvent all those long process, but you're actually still going to have to do some tests. So I hope this video was useful, and in the next video we're going to talk about how should you launch. Do you need to have a whole line of product or just one product, 2, 3? We're going to talk about that in the next video. Don't forget, think like a boss and be your own boss. Mwah!